You want to react to what Sarah Palin told Republicans and the nation and the world, indeed, Wednesday night at the convention in St. Paul?
Glad to, Wolf. Well, look, you can deliver a sarcastic line with a sense of humor, and she can, but the senator has authored major legislation, nuclear proliferation, non-proliferation work with Senator Lugar, campaign ethics reform, reform of ethics laws in the criminal justice system as an Illinois senator. But that line was like a lot of her lines. I canceled the bridge to nowhere. Well, yeah, but you kept all the federal money. I sold the state plane on eBay. Well, you put it up for sale, but it didn't sell, so then you sold it. It ended up selling to a contributor and supporter at a loss. You know, lines can be delivered that are funny, but they don't really speak to the concerns that Americans have. We got to fundamentally change the direction of the economy, as is evidenced by this recent bailout of Freddie and Fannie, and we've got to change our national security policy. And Americans understand that that's been Barack's message from day one of this campaign. Senator McCain only embraced the message at the very end Thursday night. And now he's the change candidate. It's kind of like, America, if you just give me one more chance, I promise I'll change. This time I really mean it.
And Senator Obama, Senator Kyl, he really went after Senator McCain and Republicans, saying, in effect, if you like the 8-year economic record of the Bush administration, you're going to love 4 more years of a McCain Republican administration. Here's a little clip of what Senator Obama said.
If you want change, seems to me that it's hard to argue you're going to be the big change agent when your judgment is such you think George Bush is right 90% of the time. John McCain is looking backwards, and he has adopted the exact same policies that George Bush has adopted. He is not offering you something new. He's not offering you something different.
All right, go ahead, Senator Kyl. Let me hear you respond.
Well, if you're talking about victory in Iraq, yes, George Bush does agree with John McCain that we should have victory rather than the precipitous withdrawal that was recommended by Barack Obama. If you're talking about wasteful Washington spending, I don't think you can argue that John McCain is not an agent of change. While Barack Obama was requesting nearly $1 billion in earmarks, John McCain was fighting earmarks, and so was Sarah Palin. In fact, she used her authority as governor to wipe out about $500 million in spending. She vetoed the spending. In the first year, it was about 13% of the budget, about 10% of the budget in her second year. Nobody can argue that John McCain has not tried very hard to end wasteful Washington spending.
But on issues like tax cuts, Senator McCain initially, back in 2001 and 2003, opposed President Bush's tax cuts. He voted against them, one of only 2 Republicans, together with Lincoln Chafee, to vote against them. But now he says those tax cuts, which he opposed, should be made permanent. Where is the difference between Bush and McCain when it comes to taxes?
When it comes to taxes, John McCain agrees that the Bush tax cuts have been one of the best things for the American economy in our history. And to go back to the rates that they were before, especially when the economy is not doing great right now, would be devastating. The difference is that John McCain also believes that we should provide more capital for business so that we can keep business here in the United States and therefore get our corporate tax rate down a little bit closer to the average around the world. Right now, we have the 2nd highest corporate tax rate in the world. So with respect to the marginal tax rates, capital gains, and dividends, John McCain and I and many others agree with President Bush that we need to keep those taxes as low as possible rather than Barack Obama, who would increase those tax rates.
Here's how Senator McCain went after Senator Obama on the issue of taxes, and I want Governor Kaine to respond. Listen to this.
I will keep taxes low and cut them where I can. My opponent will raise them. I will open new markets to our goods and services. My opponent will close them.
All right, Governor, go ahead.
Wolf, if the Bush-McCain tax policies were as successful as Senator Kyl just indicated, we wouldn't have gone from massive surplus to massive deficit, job growth to job loss, weak dollar, inflation creeping up dramatically in energy prices and food costs. The economy has been managed in a disastrous way under President Bush with John McCain as his chief cheerleader. And on taxes, all you have to do is compare these 2 guys, and they have a different answer to the question, what does economic success look like? Senator McCain, for him, economic success is how the wealthiest individuals and the largest businesses are doing, because that's where all his tax cuts are directed. For Senator Obama, it's tax cuts for middle-class Americans and tax cuts for small businesses so they can buy health insurance for their employees and so that they can have a zero capital gains tax rate for small and startup businesses. If you think that the success of the economy is with the wealthiest and the biggest businesses, then Senator McCain is going to keep up that basic strategy of President Bush. But Senator Obama is going to redirect the definition of success. How is the middle class doing? The folks that are squeezed by foreclosures, squeezed by energy costs, squeezed by food prices going up, and how are the smallest businesses that are the engines of our economy that produce most of the job growth in this nation, how are they doing? There's a clear distinction, and we really do need change. Even Senator McCain now realizes we've got to change directions, but there is not one significant difference between what he proposes and what President Bush has pushed for the last 8 years.
Senator Kyl, Republicans have been in charge of Washington, both branches of government, the executive branch for the last 8 years and the White House, 12 of the last 14 years in charge of the legislative branch, the House and the Senate. And here is how Senator Obama is speaking about what the Republicans have managed to do and what McCain would do if he were elected.
The centerpiece of his economic policy is $200 billion in additional tax breaks to some of the wealthiest corporations out there. And 100 million of you, middle-class folks, would not get a dime of tax relief.
All right, so a couple of questions out of that, Senator Kyl. Why should ExxonMobil get additional tax cuts, tax breaks right now?
First of all, remember that Democrats have been in charge of the United States Congress for the last 2 years. One of our problems is wasteful Washington spending. Democrats, John McCain doesn't like to use the phrase spend like a drunken sailor because he thinks that denigrates his friends in the Navy. But the bottom line is that John McCain has fought very hard against wasteful Washington spending. So his first point is it's not all about taxes, it's all about spending. And with the Democrat budget that both Joe Biden and Barack Obama supported, you'd have about $1 trillion in extra spending and taxes.
But Senator Kyl, why does ExxonMobil deserve more tax cuts?
John McCain is not suggesting that ExxonMobil
But he's
should
suggesting all big businesses should get a lower tax rate.
Well, there is a myth, an urban myth about the land, and that is that John McCain or Republicans are supporting tax breaks for the oil companies. Oil companies are corporations. Corporations are sending jobs abroad because the American corporate tax rate is more than double the average around the world. What John McCain would like to do is the same thing that countries like Ireland and others have done, and that is to get our corporate rate structure closer to the average around the world so that people aren't going to take their jobs abroad where their taxes are lower, but rather will keep their jobs here in the United States. You can't go after American corporations on the one hand and then complain about people that don't have jobs because there are no corporations to hire them.
Go ahead, Governor Kaine. You want to respond?
Well, again, I'll kind of stick with where I was, Wolf. The real issue is where do you direct tax policy? And Senator McCain is directing it, as has President Bush, at the largest businesses and the wealthiest individuals. Senator Obama says you've got to direct it in a different place. It's got to be about middle-class Americans, the middle-class tax cut that he proposes, but also, and this is really important, small businesses. My dad ran a 5-man ironworking and welding shop. Small business is the backbone of the American economy. It's where most innovation happens. It's where most job growth happens.
And what Senator Obama has said is,
what he's going to do on small businesses is eliminate the capital gains tax. Eliminate the capital gains tax for every small business and startup business and give small businesses tax credits so that they can afford to buy health insurance for their employees. That is where he's targeting his tax cut policy. He's targeting it at the backbone of the American economy. The big businesses, I want them to do well, but they just don't need government's help right now. Small businesses are the places where we ought to focus our energies.
And raising top marginal rates, which is what Barack Obama wants to do, would hit small businesses most of all, because 80% of the filers in the top bracket report small business income. You're going to kill the small business with the Barack Obama tax increase.
I'll tell you what will kill the small business. If Senator McCain's plan, which would start denying businesses tax deduction for the value of health insurance and health benefits that they give to employees, and taxing individual citizens for the value of the health benefits they get from their jobs, that is what's really not only going to hurt small businesses, but you add to this foreclosure credit crunch, suddenly it's going to make it harder for people to have health insurance. That's no way to get this economy moving again.
Gentlemen, we're out of time, but a quick question to Senator Kyl, and put on your hat as the number 2 Republican in the U.S. Senate. You're the whip. This is what Senator Specter of Pennsylvania said on Friday. He said, I would like to see him, referring to Joe Lieberman, vote with Republicans in September. He's practically there. That would have the consequence of giving us a Republican Senate. He addressed the Republican convention. Senator Lieberman, Senator Lieberman did. Senator Kyl, what do you think about what Senator Specter is saying? Try to wean Senator Lieberman right now, not wait until after the elections, right now, away from the Democrats to the Republicans, so that the Republicans will be the majority in the remaining days of this term.
Well, it'd be a great idea, and as a matter of fact, it would enable us to at least do one thing, which is to get some offshore drilling, which is one thing we've been pushing very hard, and we won't get if the Democrats are in control. So it'd be great if Joe would join us. I know there are complicated factors as to why he might or might not, but I would agree with Senator Specter. It'd be a great thing if he could.
Have you spoken to him about it?
I have not, no.
But I suspect you might.
Well, I might.
All right, we'll leave it over there and see what
you.
happens. Senator Kyl, Governor Kaine, good discussion. Thanks to both of you for coming in.